Look at all the people.
Look at this.
Look at
this.
The people with the hats.
The hats.
You'll let us know when everyone's admitted so we can.
Absolutely. And I'll keep an eye. All right.
Off, but everyone looks amazing.
Absolutely. Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to a conversation with Carla Hall, moderated by Mary Beth Albright. My name is Dr. Erin Tucker, and on behalf of Les Dames de Escoffier, Washington, D.C. chapter, welcome, and we love the hats. Just to tell you a little bit about Les Dames, we are an international organization of women in culinary professions. It was founded in New York in 1973 to give a voice to women in food, wine, and hospitality industries. Today, the organization has grown to nearly 30 chapters across the US and Canada. Our grants, scholarships, mentoring, and community service programs are the hallmarks of the organization. Through chapter fundraising efforts, millions of dollars have been awarded in grants and scholarships and other philanthropic endeavors, and countless volunteer hours have been logged on behalf of chapter communities. Please consider today a donation so that we may continue to create opportunities for outstanding young women in the industry. Oh boy. Our DC chapter is the second largest in the organization, and our membership includes outstanding women who range from restaurateurs to chefs to nutritionists, from public relations professionals to university professors, from celebrated national TV stars like our guest today, Carla Hall, and Patty Janich, to authors like Joan Nathan and Tony Tipton Martin. So let's go ahead and get started. Mary Beth Albright, who will be moderating today, is a Washington, D.C.-based food expert with broad experience, from food attorney to finalist on Food Network Stars, where she competed on Iron Chef America. Her passion for good food grew from her mentor, the legendary Surgeon General C. Everett Kopp. After 15 years of working with Dr. Kopp on health and food issues and attending Georgetown Law School, graduating cum laude, Mary Beth advised on food systems and managed a White House initiative. She also worked at the DC law firm of Williams and Connolly and Roll Call, the oldest Capitol Hill newspaper. So many things that I could say about Mary Beth. But as an undergraduate, Albright attended the Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore. Outside of the food world, her service, and it's always important with service, includes multiple boards and co-chairing the National Cathedral Elementary School Scholarship Fund's 40th anniversary, which raised almost $1 million. Mary Beth lives in Washington, D.C. with her 10-year-old son, Truman. Thank you, Mary Beth.
Oh my gosh, Dr. Tucker, thank you. Yeah, there's a lot of things that a lot of people could say about me, I'm sure. Those were some of the nicest.
Oh, by the way, today is fun today, all right? So this is going to be fun today, and this is going to be a great avenue. And we're so happy that Mary Beth will be moderating Carla Hall, Carla Hall, who first won over audiences when she competed on Bravo's Top Chef and Top Chef All-Stars, and shared her philosophy to always cook with love. She believes food connects us all, and she strives to communicate this through her work, her cooking, and in her daily interactions with others. Carla spent 7 years co-hosting ABC's Emmy Award-winning popular lifestyle series, The Chew, and she currently brightens the mornings of millions as a culinary contributor to Good Morning America. Carla is featured on numerous shows on Food Network, and also as a judge on Crazy Delicious on Netflix. Carla hosts, which I love, a podcast for all you podcasters out there, on the wondering platform called Say Yes with Carla Hall, which focuses on interviews with successful people to explore how they overcame challenges and found their way to flourish. Her cookbook, Carla Hall Soul Food, she didn't tell me to do this, but you see this is what mine look like, all right? I got, my pages are falling out because that's a real cookbook, all right? If it's too pretty, that means you're not using it. So I can definitely proclaim that it's a great cookbook. This book, of course, she's received numerous awards, as well as the NAACP Image Award nomination. In addition to being featured in numerous cookbooks, she also has her other cookbooks of her own, Carla's Comfort Food, Favorite Dishes from Around the World, and Cooking with Love, Comfort Food That Hugs Us. Born in Nashville, Tennessee, she's a graduate of Howard University's Business School, where she worked as an accountant before deciding to work her way into the world. So many other things that I can talk about, but more importantly, Carla is also very active in a number of charities and not-for-profit organizations that reflect her passion for causes close to her heart. She is on the board of trustees for Helen Keller International Pajama Program, Gen Youth and 4-H. The thread which runs through all of these is advocating for the physical and mental well-being of children. Carla lives in DC with her husband, Matthew Lyons. Without further ado, Mary Beth Albright and Carla Hall.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tucker. I am so thrilled to be here with Carla Hall and with all you guys. And as Dr. Tucker said, this is super casual. I mean, this interview does itself, right? Carla Hall she's got so many facets. She's like a diamond. So I'm just like, I'm here to moderate this and to get all your questions in. The chat box is open if you have any. So if you have any questions for Carla. So I will just start off by saying Carla Hall is just one of my favorite people in the world. She is wonderful and a bright, bright light. I know so many people here on this call know her personally. Carla, let's just start off. Where are you and what are you doing right now? And how are you doing? I mean, we all have to start off with this question, right?
That is such a great question. Dr. Tucker, thank you for that introduction. I am in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Has nothing to do with anything, but my in-laws are in Kalamazoo. Matthew and I are renovating our house. And when I say renovating, we've been on the road for about 2 months now. And then people are like, are you back in your house? And then I send them a picture with our entire back of our house gone, but it's just a shell of itself. So we're going to be on the road until September. And I don't know where we're going to. We were in Nashville. I'm in Grand Rapids. We're going to Atlanta next for 5 weeks through Asheville. And then I don't know what's after Atlanta. Anybody have any suggestions? I just have to be close to the East Coast within a day. So that's that. And we're doing good. I know the pandemic has been so hard on so many people. I've gotten to stay home with my husband, which is really great. I'm happy to say that has been great.
Matthew's a great guy. I was going to ask you how he's doing. He's doing well, it sounds like.
Yeah, he's doing good.
So as you're going back and forth, I mean, the first thing I wanted to talk about is how is it going with Food Network? About 7 months ago, it was announced that you have a huge talent deal with them. And now you're just all over the place with them. So how is that going? And tell us about it.
I love that you said huge. Basically, it's an overall deal. It's not as huge. Huge is all relative, isn't it? So it is. It's really been great. I taped 4 shows during the pandemic. So I taped Halloween, and I'm getting ready to tape another one. I taped Best Bakers in America, which I just finished taping. Worst Cooks, and then I feel like I did another show. So that, I mean, it's going really well, but not only am I thinking of or doing shows where I'm the talent, I'm also thinking of ideas so I can be the executive producer of a show. What started all of this was my show and idea that's called Food Ways with Carla Hall. And that's a show where we will take a dish, and it's a travel log show. So it's sort of been put on hold because we can't travel because of COVID. We take a dish and then we research it so that we can go back in time and see where that dish originated. And then along the way, accrediting everyone who had something to do with that dish. Because we talk a lot about appropriations, and a lot of times wherever the dish landed in America, it's like, hey, it's American, but when it could have started somewhere else, and just really research that. It's sort of like, who do you think you are, but with food.
Oh, what a great, I mean, I know that's like a TV pitch, but it actually is like a really great sounding show. Where are you? When do you expect that to be released? To be ready for
Broadway? I haven't even started taping. We did an amazing sizzle. So we hope to be in April. We hope to start taping some of the American parts. So we'll probably do all of the American parts, and then we'll go abroad. So we won't tape a full show because we'll just do everything in the States, and then we'll go abroad and do the back half of the show, or the front half. Yeah.
It's exciting. Like I mean, it just feels like it's tying together so many parts of you the travel,
Yes.
the cooking and just loving people and looking into the backgrounds of stuff. I mean, it just feels like that's a very you sort of idea.
So the one thing is, I mean, I love doing the shows in studio, but I really like people. I think that is my strong suit. I genuinely enjoy people. So going out in the field and talking to people and sort of seeing them and saying, I see you, and talking about their history and their culture, it just makes me really excited. So I can't wait until I'm out there. In the meantime, I have a couple of costumes to jump into for Halloween.
Oh, good. Everybody loved, I mean, the Halloween show was great. Everybody, we were just talking, I'll let everybody know that before we got on, Carla and I were talking about our hats, and she just threw this together. Like what she has on right now, as you may know, she has a history as a fashion model, and we can all tell from that. So I'm going to ask like a few questions because we have a ton of questions from the chat, of course, because everybody wants to know all about Carla. Someone wanted to know, when did you start doing Worst Cooks of America, and will you do more shows like this? So those studio shows or the reality competition shows.
So I did a Halloween special, and then after I did the Halloween special, Ann and I were talking, and she was like, "You really love teaching," and I'm like, "I do," and I really enjoyed doing this show. It was like crazy 2 very long days, and so they invited me back to do an entire season. And so this was the first time that I did a whole season. It was incredible. Let me just tell you, it was so hard. And it felt like Top Chef for me, but on the teaching side, because I knew that everything that I said to those worst cooks, they were going to take as the gospel. So the the um the responsibility that I felt in teaching them was really intense for me. And again, the days were like 12-hour days, but it was so rewarding. But also, I think the thing is, I thought I was being punked because there were at some point, I'm like, and is this real? This couldn't possibly be real. But when this kid Joey didn't know how to use a manual can opener, I was just like, wait, I'm like, where are the cameras? Like the ones who are gonna say, just kidding. But you don't know where people are starting. But the best thing about it, so many of those people transformed in terms of their confidence and just empowering themselves. And that is why Anne is so passionate about it. I loved it. I hope I get to do another season. Not for a couple, I need a couple season break, but I really would like to do it again.
Yeah, the shows are grueling taping those. And Anne Burrell is she's so wonderful. And it is amazing because like the way that you two play off of each other too is great because you're both so loving, such kind people, but it comes out in different ways, right?
Hmm.
And I think again, it feels like a very Carla Hall thing to do, to show people how to cook for themselves, how to take care of themselves, how to love themselves by learning how to
Yeah.
cook and other
And I
people.
still keep in touch with them. I do. I still, a lot of the through social media, I still stay in contact with my blue diamonds. Um, but the one thing that they cut out, and I'm so glad, I cried every time somebody had to go home.
Yeah.
I was there crying. I was like, they had to cut that out. They're like, no, we can't have you crying every time. So
But I understand it's very emotional when you're sleep deprived and you're like eating bad food. Like this is the other thing. Like, you've been on a lot of these shows. Like, the food is not that great. The food that they actually feed you is not that great. So
oh, 100%, 100%. But let me tell you, so during all of this, I had started this meal plan and working out. So I was cooking my own meals. I never did the craft services. I was actually making my own meals, coming in with my lunch and everything. So I managed to not go off the rails. And plus, it was only that bad food, their food that I ate. But I was still trying to work out. And I would come home and I was staying in this brownstone. And I didn't go outside because I needed to do 40 minutes of cardio. I would just do 40 minutes up and down 3 flights of stairs, like 3 times a week. It was insane, but I was committed.
Yeah, and this actually brings me to something that you're doing on, I think it's on Instagram, right? Is it your Recess with Carla Hall, which I love too, because it's just
Yes.
like cooking is playing, right? When you're doing it at home. I understand when you're in business with it, it's not, it's actual work, but
Hmm.
it's the same idea that you use with exercise and with fitness of just like, we're having recess, we're doing this thing, there's one that I watched that you did like the skip ball.
Yeah. Oh my God. I love. Okay, you all raise your hand. When was the last time that has anybody skip ball like Lenny Sorensen? Hi, Lenny Sorensen. Okay, has anybody skip ball? I mean, you have to grab a skip ball. You can just get them at Target, Walmart, in the kids department. But it's amazing. It took me a minute to for my muscle memory kick in from 50 years ago, but it was really awesome. But recess started during the beginning of the pandemic, and it was actually around the time we were having all of this the George Floyd and the protest and just the frustration and what do you do? And I knew that I couldn't physically go to a protest because I would have to go out and work. So I had to turn this energy into something. And so I went out to have recess because I'm like, shake your booty, change your moody. That was the whole thing. And it all sort of happened organically. And it was just 10 minutes of doing something, moving, getting out of your head. And that's how it all started.
Well, and it's interesting too, because I think part of the line, sort of the Carla Hall line that runs through things too, is how beautifully you do everything. And you always like you dress so beautifully in those videos, right? In your recess videos. And like you always just look, actually somebody just posted, love your glasses, please start your own clothesline. So,
Oh, Linda.
yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I've wanted to do a line of frames for forever. There's no money in it, but I said, what if I had a line of charms that you can add to your existing glasses because that wouldn't be expensive and you just sort of put them right here. Nothing big enough to obstruct your vision, but I have really been trying to figure out how to get my design and things that I wear. But by the way, so all of the aprons that I wore on Worst Cooks, I designed those fabrics. So they were one of a kind, but eventually I do want to have a line of sort of happier without being country um, designs in the kitchen. You know what I mean? Because I
Yeah.
feel like sometimes you have the men have like this deep darks and grays, or you can go really country, or you can just go cartoonish. But I really wanted to have something in between, but also something that connects to my culture. So in some of these fabrics, I have kale, I have pictures of corn, but it is not cartoonish. And I love what else do I have? I don't know why I can't think about it, but just and I love mixed prints. So you will see on those aprons that I'm always mixing prints.
I had no idea you were designing fabrics. That's pretty incredible, actually. So Julie Wilson wants to know, Carla, will you consider doing a plant-based cookbook? And I know that so you don't, am I right about this, that you don't drink alcohol?
I don't.
Yeah, yeah.
Correct. You are correct. I do not.
Yeah, right. So I think it's interesting, like the sort of freedom and creativity that can take place in a space that has restrictions, right? Like I
Mhm.
remember that you would make like zero proof cocktails, like that kind of thing. So would you consider doing a plant-based cookbook and just keeping meats generally out of it?
I was just asked. I would, and my diet is such that I eat a lot of plant-based foods. As a matter of fact, my latest cookbook, Carla Hall Soul Food, Every Day in Celebration, it has a lot of plant-based dishes in it. But when people see soul food, they naturally think, oh, it's really fattening, which was the purpose of doing the book to show us that soul food is more than smothered pork chops. Um, but I would consider it. Someone had also just approached me about doing a line of plant-based frozen food. And I said I would consider that. I also have the things that came out with Gold Belly. So it's my hot chicken and then some desserts and everything. Um, and just trying to sort of play around in that world of licensing my food and just going through the process of working out the recipes with the chefs. That was really great. So before I did a cookbook, I would probably play with establishing myself in the market and maybe doing a line of plant-based frozen foods because my collard greens are vegan. They are, and I have all of the dishes that I had at my restaurant, except for the chicken, they were vegetarian. And somebody came into the restaurant. They were like, could you have more vegetarian dishes? I said the only thing that's not vegetarian is the chicken. So I mean, everything was there, and so yes, I would. A long story, longer, but yeah.
No, this is what we're here for. And I think it's great that you mentioned the Gold Belly, that Gold Belly sells your food. I mean, Gold Belly is such a prestigious place to have your food sold, right? It's like you and Thomas Keller, right? And so are you finding that people are really receptive to hot chicken and that style of food around the country?
Yeah, I see Sharon Rizzo said, I had your chicken in Brooklyn and it rocked. Yes, thank you, thank you, thank you. I think so. I think that people are receptive to once something gets started and there's a fire under it. So there was Princess Hot Chicken and then I think Hattie B sort of took off nationally and people started to get to know hot chicken. Then there's the Hot Chicken Festival in Nashville, Tennessee. It's around July 4th. So once it sort of spreads out in the country, there's an opportunity there to educate people about it. Most people don't go that deep about the education of food, as Lenny Sorensen can probably attest to, because that's what she does. But I think people sort of stop at the surface. But the idea is to educate people about how all of these dishes came to be, and so people have been very receptive. Now, interesting thing when I am critiquing the food because I am not making it and other chefs are making it and I make these certain tweaks. Sometimes people will say, "Oh, the people who are shopping at Gold Belly won't know that you wouldn't make it like this in Nashville, so it's okay." I'm like, "Actually, no, it's not okay because I do want them to have my version of the food and how I see it." So we do have to change it, and it could be little tweaks. It could be something as simple as adding mustard to the macaroni and cheese and it was perfect and then they added too much. I'm like, no, this is not mustard macaroni and cheese, and I don't want people to think that this is how we eat it in Nashville because there's a little bit of ego in that. So yes, you do have to change it, and little tweaky things, so just to maintain my integrity of my food memories as I'm sharing them around the country.
And that must be a very difficult time in your career, right? Like it's something that everybody wishes for, right? Oh my gosh, people all around the country want to order my food and have it mailed to them. But it comes with its challenges, exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, yeah. And also, especially if you're not doing it and somebody else, I can do bad by myself. I can do bad. I can fail on my own.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
really don't need to. I don't need you to help me fail and help me show up when it's not right.
And take
So,
50%. I'm just saying.
oh right, okay. And then there's that. And then there's that.
Yeah.
So Laura Chase had said, she said, "Oh, I Chase did for many." So I'm sorry if I'm butchering your name, but I'm really going to try because I just love to phonetically look at people's names and try to pronounce them. I think the portraits of you in soul food are really wonderful. Do you have any advice for aspiring cookbook photographer? When we were doing those photographs in soul food, I wanted I wanted a photographer who was more doing lifestyle and um, journalism photography because I didn't want everything to be set and perfect. So we really approached the book documentary style. And what a lot of people don't realize, all of the summer recipes, we were in Nashville, and it happened to be, I was just going to go to Nashville to sort of test the recipes after I had gone through like 5 different southern states, and sort of collect my thoughts, and and reflect on the states that I'd been through, and then start working on the cookbook with Genevieve Coe. And it turned out we got to Nashville, we had this beautiful place to work in. So we kept the photographer there. We went to the farmer's market, grabbed food, and then I just cooked. And then he took pictures. I was actually cooking without having the recipes ready. So I think for a photographer, if you can just try to capture the person as you see them, rather than have an idea of what you want to see, because I think that's what a lot of people do in a cookbook. Yes, you have to have a shot list, but I think if you encourage the chef or whoever you are taking pictures of to, let's really try to be in the moment, and I want to capture you, that's what we did. And no one came back and said, oh, there's a fence in the back, we don't like that fence, and it's not pretty enough to be in the book. Like, it is what it is. And so we really wanted that to be the case. And even the people that we took pictures of, we caught them during a conversation with me. So I would say really encourage, and that can come from the photographer. Really encourage your subject to be free flowing, because people are buying the book for the person, not necessarily for the recipes.
Carla, I've never heard a cookbook author speak about food photography that way, in terms of just like photojournalism. That's a completely new idea to me, and it's fascinating. Your perspective and sort of the diversity of experiences that you've had in your life, I think really feed into why you're so successful at what you're doing now. One of the things Dean Jones has asked, you are a great cookbook author, and I really love your books. That's a good beginning. And I think they're very well written. Who are you reading cookbook wise right now, and what are you excited about? It's a great question.
So I am reading Shirley Corher. So Shirley did her last book. She did Cookwise, Bakewise, and gosh, what is the last book that she did? And I am a huge Shirley Corher fan. And then what else am I grabbing? There was some other book that my latest book that I just cooked from was Food with Friends with Jesse Tyler Ferguson, because I
Yeah.
was interviewing him for my podcast. And what is so great about his book that I love is the back and forth between him and Julie Tanis that he writes with. But you see their perspective, and you see the way that their chemistry works in the book and the sharing. She does the sweet things, he does savory. She's more of a cook, and he's learning to cook, but you see that. And the reason I also love that book is because he's like, everybody has done everything. What do I have to offer? You have your perspective to offer, and I think that is the thing that people remember. Cornbread is cornbread, a roll, chicken is a chicken, but the way that you do it is what you have to offer. And sometimes I think we forget that, especially as women, we forget that, and we forget to value that, Somebody had also asked, tell us about your that's Bonnie Benwick. Tell us about your collaborations with Kristen Hartke. So if Kristen has been in my Dom, I forget how many years. So she cold called me at an event, and I was like, she said, I want to help you with your website. I'm like, oh my God, my website is a hot mess. Thank you. I'm going to call you later. I didn't give her my number or my email address. She goes home and she talks to her husband, and she said, oh, I met Carla Hall. We're going to work together. He said, oh, did you get her number? She's like, no. He's like, yeah, right. Like, she's going to call you back. And then that night around 9 or 10, I ended up calling her, and it was like, see, I told you to call. I said, oh my God, I forgot to call you. So we have been working slowly. That relationship has turned into something bigger, where Kristen does all of my culinary events, and she also is my social content manager. We worked on a children's book together. And so it has just grown into such a wonderful collaboration creatively because we're both, or people. When you have, and once a year I get together with Kristen and my assistant Kirsten, and we just have a brainstorming session, and we talk about all of the things that I did in the year, what I want to work on, and we take these little pieces and put them on stickies, and we put them on the wall, and we look at them, and we take pictures of them, and that becomes my vision board. And sometimes, and I would encourage you all, if you don't do this already, even if it's on like a tab, but I think physically it's great when you put it on the wall so you can actually see what you did. Sometimes we forget all of the things that we've done. I literally go through my calendar, look at all the things that I've done. I make a tab of the company that I work with. I put it up there. I'm like, who's left? Who do I want to work with? And that becomes my vision board. And then those are the things that we go after in the year. But that said, we have to make sure that everything has a purpose and it makes sense and there's a thread going through them.
So is that where the podcast came from? You mentioned the podcast a little bit earlier, and I really wanted to get to that. So I'm glad, was that one of the things that you thought to yourself, well, that's something I would really love to do, to talk to people about the challenges they've overcome in their success?
Well, first, podcast was just on a sticky with podcast. I didn't know how it was going to outpicture. I just knew that I wanted to do a podcast. And the hardest thing was deciding what I was going to talk about. So people had approached me about doing a podcast, but I needed to do it with a company that already had the infrastructure and they already had the producers, So I do work with Wondery, and they helped me put a list together, my wish list of people I want to talk to. But the beginning is the hardest because you really want people to come on your podcast, but you're still trying to figure out really what is the hook. And so my hook became my mantra: say yes, adventure follows, then growth. And I sort of turned it back to myself. If I've done this and I'm trying to figure out what I want to do, and my career has been in a zigzag, other people are probably have experienced the same thing. And so that's sort of how the podcast came about.
Yeah. And I think people think success is like a straight line up, and it's like a squiggle. It goes all over the place.
Oh my God. Squiggle, hills, ups and downs.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes the line just disappears. You don't even know where the line is. Then it shows up again. So we have someone who has asked, I would like to know this too. Do you have any funny stories from hosting a dinner party? I guess it would be pre-COVID, but it's a great question.
Yeah, pre-COVID. Yeah. So Thanksgiving, my roommate and I, this was before I got married, we used to have a Thanksgiving dinner if we didn't go home. And sometimes it could be, because, especially if I was going to have Thanksgiving in DC and my sister was there. So my mother would be coming, and we would have like a Friendsgiving dinner. And we would just invite random people whom she met, like when she was out, like at bars and stuff. I didn't go out to bars, so it was all up to her to bring the randoms in. So these were people who weren't going home. So we decided to have this grand Thanksgiving dinner, and I decided that it was going to be fancy. We were going to have courses, but that meant that we needed fancy plates. So we went and borrowed some from Macy's. It's fancy. They didn't know we borrowed them. We did buy them, but we were going to bring them back. And then we had some fancy tablecloth, and we were telling everybody.
We all know what you're talking about. We've all done
anything. We've got it.
I mean,
Right. And so we had this, it was so, when I look back at the pictures, I mean, talk about mixed prints. It was horrific. It was so busy, but we had this great dinner. And you all, I don't know if you've heard me mention Andante, but my friend Greta actually coined that term because I had made these orange lentils, and I wanted them to be so perfect and so beautiful and round, and actually see the shapes of them, that I didn't cook them enough. And so as she is eating them, and we had it with Chilean sea bass, and she is like, I don't know what's wrong with these lentils, but they are not al dente, they are undente. And so that became this thing of like this undente. But also, this person had come in thinking that this was a potluck, and she comes in with these sweet potatoes with marshmallows, and we were like, we will take that to the kitchen. That will not, and we were thinking that will not be served. We had already planned this dinner, but it was so, we were so uppity about it. But it was just all of these little things. We had such a good time. And then we washed the dishes and dried them nicely, repacked them and returned them.
Good for you.
Shameful. Shameful.
At least you washed them. There's a,
Oh my
yeah,
God, yeah.
I'm just bringing them back. I don't know. This is from Carolyn Crow. This is, I'm curious about how the food media industry changed since Ms. Hall was first on Top Chef. With Food Network content moving to the Discovery streaming platform, how does she think the food media landscape will continue to change? Great question.
Ooh, oh my gosh, that is such a great question. Um, I think it has changed even in terms of who is on television. When you think about the fact that I was on television as a 44-year-old Black woman who was a caterer, right? I mean, think about even the contestants that you see on other shows. When you think about the judges, when you think about who is covered in the media, and I know this just from talking to Kristen Hardkey, it used to be that the same faces were always the same faces and names and talked about. And Benny Benwick, I'm sure can talk. I mean, Bonnie Benwick can and talk about this too. But now I think that writers are really digging deep to find new stories and new people to talk about. And I love that, which is why in my cookbook I worked with a culinary historian and all of these different people. I'm like, who should I reach out to as I'm going through these southern states to talk to these Black chefs and farmers and restaurateurs, people that I didn't know, because I really wanted to highlight them. So I think that that has changed. Another thing that has changed is the perspective that when you get on these shows, and I don't know if people really think about this. So when I'm judging a show and I am bringing my Southern background, I'm bringing my perspective as a Black woman growing up in the South. So when there are contestants whose background I share, I am able to speak on it because a lot of times the other judges are not from the South. They are not Black. And so they judge that food very differently. And they're like, well, I haven't heard of this being served at Thanksgiving. I'm like, well, when was the last time you had Thanksgiving in the South? Right. And so I can say, actually, this is an authentic dish that one would have. And so changing that perspective is really important. And that landscape continues to change. I also know that just in television, networks are looking for a diverse group of production companies, and just the perspective and the lens in which you look at a show, and they are actively doing that. So that has changed.
Well, this might be tie into our next question, which is, will you still be involved in the restaurant at the African American Museum in Washington, D.C. when it reopens? Sweet Home Cafe was such a wonderful experience within that experience.
Is the chef there, and I was the culinary ambassador for the first 2 years. I am not the culinary ambassador anymore, even though it's in my bio as I did that. And I think so. I won't in a formal sense, but I always talk about the museum, and I have a really great relationship with Restaurant Associates and with Jerome Grant. But as Jerome's star rises, he becomes the ambassador as well as the chef, as he should be, because, and people were always asking me, oh, the food. I'm like, I have nothing to do with the food. It's Jerome's food. But I was just the mouthpiece to say, come to the museum, because it is a living museum at the African American history. Oh my God, it's NAMAC, the National Museum of African American History and Culture. Um, so not in a formal capacity, I won't.
And Lizette Coro wants to know, would you like to mention your work with Grace the Play, one of your many projects?
Hi, Lizette. Okay. So those of you who don't know me, I was a theater kid and I really wanted to do theater. And so this play, Grace, that Lizette mentioned, I have been working with the creator is Nolan Williams Jr. and it is a play about um, it is about the black caterers in Philadelphia, and in this particular, there were five big families, and they're focusing on one family and what they go through in terms of food and grace. And there's a song called Pot Liquor, and it is a play about fellowship and food and song and getting back to our culture. And it is amazing. I cannot wait for you all to see it. Those of you who are in DC, you will be able to see it. I'm hoping this year. But we did a series of conversations with people around food and catering, and such I think it's going to be a very important piece in that, bringing food and song and our culture together in one place, in one living and breathing place. So yes, I will continue to do that.
I'm so glad that you mentioned that too, because the catering industry, it's so, it is funny because when you said, when I went on Top Chef, I was a 44-year-old Black woman who was a caterer, which was not the demographic that they usually have. And so I love that you're also
Right.
doing other work to bring sort of that voice to people who don't understand it, right? I mean, a lot of people on this call
Yeah.
understand it, but Anita Raymond wants to know, who is your culinary hero?
Oh, my culinary hero. I have to say my grandmothers, because even though I didn't cook with them I didn't start cooking until I was like in my 20s after college. A lot of people assume that, I started cooking very early on. I didn't. I love to eat. So my grandmother's food, I had to go back in my memory, and it was those food memories that I had to tie into. So after I went to culinary school, I used the building blocks that I learned at culinary school and my palate, and going back home and having and trying to recreate this food, because nobody was really cooking. And my mother doesn't really cook, so I call myself the culinary matriarch in my family, even though my mother is the matriarch, because it is up to me to rebuild those food memories in my family. We have a really small family, so I would say it's my grandmother's, and I always talk about Granny. And when I had my restaurant, I talked about Thelma. That was the name of our chicken, but it really was the name of my grandmother, my father's mother. So they are my culinary heroes, and I continue to sort of, peel away the calloused memories to try to get back to their food.
Well, what a gift to your whole family that you have that skill, right? Because there are so many families that have lost those food memories and will never find them again because they don't have the skill to sort of like reconstruct them. So I just think that's a wonderful gift to your family too. You're able to do that. Jill Collins wants to know if she's going to see you at the DC Metro Cooking Show this year.
Jill, will you? Am I going? Kristen, are you here? Am I going? I need to check my calendar. I don't even know if I'm booked. Anything that's not today is tomorrow, and I don't know what's happening tomorrow, but I'll have to book. I love that show. It's so funny. Every time I go to the Metropolitan Food Show, I find these local artisans who are doing so many great things. And when I was at the Chew, we would always give each other gifts at the end of the year, but I would always find somebody with this new product, and that would be the gift that I would give to my co-host. And so that was really my purpose for going. I'm like, yes, I'm going because I'm going to find something really cool and new and share it. So we'll see.
Yeah, people say Disney World is the happiest place on earth. I feel like the Metro Cooking Show is the happiest place. Everybody in there is so happy, and they're all like,
No, they're so happy. But
yeah.
wait, I remember when I first went and I wasn't on the main stage and I was working for a company. I was doing their peanut powder, and then I remember then fast forward, then I got on the main stage. I thought I had arrived. I'm in the main stage. It was amazing. I was so excited. And then I didn't have all of my ingredients. Somehow all of my ingredients for this one dish had gotten they had gotten mixed up, but I didn't care. It was so fun and funny. And then I kept yelling things out for a chef to go and get me to bring back to the stage. It was such a blast, and everybody, and like you said, Mary Beth, everybody is in such a great mood, and they are really there to have a good time. And I think that when we do get to the point where we are ready to have these big food shows and festivals, it's going to be like the Roaring Twenties. I mean, everybody's going to be coming out and ready to party.
Oh, absolutely, in every kind of way, right? Restaurants and clubs, and definitely the Metro Cooking Show.
Yeah,
Those shows are
yeah.
coming back. You're right, and it's gonna be real. We only have a few minutes left, so I'd like to ask. There was a question higher up in the chat, but I wanted to save it for last because I think that it's a poignant. The answer might be. It's a poignant question, probably a poignant answer. What causes are close to your heart right now? What philanthropic causes are close to your heart? What are you focusing on? What are you working on? There is so much to be done in this world right now. So what are you focusing on?
Yeah, there is so much, and I'm going to answer this in a in two ways. Dr. Tucker mentioned the organizations that I'm involved in, Helen Keller International, and they do work all around the world, especially they do work here in the States in several Asian countries, Southeast Asian countries, and in Africa. Um, Giving out vitamin A and the health of eyes, and so empowering women and teaching people how to cook and um, nurture and feed their kids from 0 to 2, because so many diseases can be eradicated if you get good food for those first 24 months. The pajama program, and it's about sleep health and books and pajamas for inner city kids, and so that these kids can feel safe and dream, to be able to dream, through books. And then the 4-H, I just joined the 4-H board this year, and then DC Central Kitchen. And the thread is generally food, and the health of kids, and also like with HKI glasses, and the work that they do in Africa and empowerment. And the other day, I had a conversation with one of my board members, and and being in an organization, and I get pulled in many different directions. But I was just like, sometimes you ask yourself, am I making a difference? Not just with being a mouthpiece and a storyteller, but how am I making a difference? I'm really terrible with asking people for money. So how do I make a difference in talking about these organizations? And I was like, am I making a difference, or just am I feeling guilty at the end of the day when you're supposed to be turning in a big old list with some people like bringing money to the group, right? Which is real. And so it was to say, well, this is how you make a difference. We have a pipeline of money, but it's going out and storytelling and being passionate about all of the things that the organization is doing. And so when you asked me that, I was like, I do feel passionate, and I know why I joined these organizations. I know why I still do things with Les Dames. And I'm saying that because maybe somebody else has to hear that today, as I'm talking to myself, and I had to get off from being guilty about not doing one thing because I wasn't valuing the thing that I brought to the table. So those are the organizations that I work with.
Carla, now I want to talk to you for another hour, because talking about devaluing yourself and valuing, women valuing themselves and each other. It's such an important part of the mission of Les Dames. And you said storytelling with passion in your philanthropic work, and that's what you give all of us every single day. So thank you so much, and thank you for this time that you've given us. And I'm going to hand it back to Dr. Tucker. I'm sure she'll thank you much more profusely, but it was a really special conversation. And I hope that you have a chance to read the comments at some point, because the comments are just people talking about how much they love you and they want you to come to Sacramento. And, so it's really wonderful to have this kind of positivity in the middle of everything that's happening right now. So thank you, Carla. And Dr.
Well,
Tucker, I'll send it back
thank
to
you, Mary
Yeah.
Beth.
Oh, yeah. So Dr. Tucker, I'll send it back to you.
So
Or I'll send it
Dr.
to
Tucker,
Carla.
before you come on, no, I just want to say, I got to give a shout out to Paula Jacobson. I was like, okay, what kind of hat are you going to wear today, first of all? And it is amazing. Damon Jones, I got to give you a shout out to your beautiful hat. Like, what? Oh my gosh. Carolyn Crow, you look so elegant. So I mean, even the Les Dames caps. So I had to just say that. This has been a pleasure to be here today.
Thank you, Carla.
Thank you. Dr. Tucker?
Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for being with us this afternoon. Please feel free to go to our website and sign up for our emails so that you'll know about future interesting programs. You can go to www.lesdamesdc.org. Today's program is being recorded and will be posted on our website. As Carla mentioned, how can I make a difference? Well, while you're on our website, please consider a donation so that we may continue to create opportunities for outstanding young women in the industry. Donations go to the Chapter Scholarship Program, which underwrites the professional studies of women in the food, beverage, and hospitality industries, and our grants program, which funds tax-exempt charitable or educational organizations that are making a difference in the global food community. Both Mary Beth Albright and Carla Hall are our chapter's longtime members and know that these are very, very important. You may find a donate button by visiting our website. Once again, www.lesdamesdc.org. Take a moment, do a thank you through the chat, do the shout outs, do the holler. And thank you so much, Mary Beth and Carla, for taking this time to speak with us today. Everyone have a very safe and enjoyable week. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Thanks, y'all.
And wear your hats.
Thank you, Carla.
Thank you.
Mary Beth.
Thank you, Carla.
Thank you, Carla. Nice to see you.
Thanks.
Thanks,
Nice to see
Carla.
all
Big
of you
hugs.
all.
Carla.
Thank you, Carla. Stay safe.
Thank you, Carla.
Stay
Thank
safe,
you,
Carla.
Thank you, Carla. Made my day.
Oh, I am so glad. Hey,
Totally.
Olga.
Totally.
Hi, Nagrat.
Thank you. This is the best.
Carla, thank you so much.
Fantastic.
Oh,
Fantastic.
Thank you,
hey,
Carla.
Jill.
Nice
Thank
meeting
you,
you.
Carla.
Hi,
Thank
Cora.
you.
You're the best, Carla.
Hello.
Hey, Carla.
Thanks a lot, Carla.
Hi. Laura Bell. Okay, I
Yes,
need some
fill the
tea.
hat, Damon.
Okay.
30
Carla,
seconds, get it in.
Carla, I'm wearing my mom's wave hat in honor of my mom. And I loved your mom on Rachel Ray. I saw her and my heart was just singing you two together. So,
Yeah, she is so special.
Yes, she is.
So special.
it brought tears to my eyes. I miss my mom so much. So I honored her today during Women's History Month because she was away for 5 years during World War II. So I love
is
seeing moms together with their
amazing.
daughters. So
Oh my gosh.
Thank you,
Bye.
everyone. Great
God bless
time.
you.
Bye.
Thank you.
thank you.
Have
Thanks,
a great
Carla.
day, everybody.